Great, so I think we'll call the regular meeting of Township Council for the purpose of a public hearing to order for Monday, February 26th. Mr. Richardson, Mr. Cooner this time. And look over, can maybe read the preamble first and then we'll get going.
A public hearing is a statutory requirement under Section 464 of the Local Government Act and must be held before third reading of a community plan, land use contract amendment bylaw, heritage designation bylaw, or heritage revitalization agreement bylaw. During a public hearing, council acts in a quasi-judicial role for the purpose of allowing persons who believe their interest in property is affected by a bylaw, permit, or other matter to make representations to council either orally, by written submission, or to add comments to or elaborate upon correspondence that may have already been presented to council concerning the bylaws. It is important to note that council is not able to receive any additional information on the bylaws following the public hearing as dictated by case law. The hearing procedure involves an explanation from the Community Development Division on the purpose of the proposed bylaws and to hear from individuals regarding the bylaws. In order to ensure that all interested parties have a reasonable opportunity to be heard, speakers are requested to keep representations as brief and succinct as possible and no longer than 5 minutes in duration, excluding the time required for questions from council. Speakers will be asked to state their name, neighborhood, and city for the record. And if referring to prepared remarks, to submit copies of these to the township clerk. Decorum must be always maintained. This includes refraining from applause, booing, or heckling. To assist with large numbers of speakers, individuals must advise the township clerk and sign the speakers list prior to the commencement of the public hearing. The names on the speakers list will be read out during the hearing. Individuals who have already addressed council and wish to add further submissions will wait until the people that have not yet addressed council have had an opportunity to speak. All submissions and speaker lists are considered part of the public record. Council members should not express their views nor debate the bylaws. However, they may question speakers to clarify particular points in their submissions. Council may consider third reading or third reading and final adoption at this meeting or at its next regular meeting. Thank you.
Great. As I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, in particular acknowledge our valued relationships with the Katzie, Kwantlen, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. With that, could I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please? Moved by Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Rint. Call the question on the agenda. That carries unanimously. Mr. Cooner, item B1.
Yes, Your Worship. Item B1 on the public hearing agenda is bylaw number 5983. Which amends the rural plan by replacing section 5.7.1 with the planning policy framework for development in the Salmon River uplands. The Salmon River uplands area is shown on the map. The proposed planning policy framework was endorsed by council at the November 20th, 2023 regular meeting based on recommendations in Report 21-121 and Report 23-243. Council has directed staff to bring forward potential draft amendments to the rural plan bylaw to replace section 5.7.1 with policies and prerequisites for future development in the Salmon River uplands area. The proposed framework continues the existing policy guidance in the rural plan that the Salmon River uplands area should be maintained for rural residential and agriculture uses. It outlines a list of technical considerations, including but not limited to climate action, stormwater management, ecological protection, trail connectivity, greenway amenity, water servicing, and protection of the rural character that must be addressed by development proponents in the area. The technical considerations were development after consultation with development proponents who have held several public information meetings to obtain community input. Notices of the public hearing were advertised in the Langley Advance Times on February 15th and February 22nd. We have 2 written submissions, and there are currently 3 individuals on the speakers list. I apologize in advance for mispronouncing their names, but they are Fred Strawewski and Yuvresh Mehta and Gloria Stelling.
Great. So with that, we'll ask the first speaker to come forward, Fred Sikowski.
Yes,
Great.
Mayor
Thank you.
and Council, my name is Fred Trustowski. I live in this area that's affected here.
Okay.
I am only proposing tonight because I cannot do a presentation because I've never been notified by law, the bylaws that Township of Langley has incorporated, that the residents affected get notified that this is happening. Number 2, the gentleman is referred to that it was advertised in the local paper. We don't get that local paper. I don't belong on Facebook. People cannot respond to this and give ideas or talk about something that we don't know anything about. So how do you explain to me what you plan to do there when you have policies in place? Now, I did notice that a little handout Councillor Bailey gave us beforehand, and it refers to the fact that there has been some public hearings, but I find it interesting that the comment refers to bear with me, it says the development proponents who held several public information meetings, just listen. Well, development proponents are always proposing something. I live in an area, I've seen its developments change on that area and it still has not been developed. I don't even know what's happening, so I can't even talk about that. So how do I talk about this and present it to council and saying, this is what we should be doing or looking at? And I know organizations that are trying to change things and are not getting any headway. So that's the only comments I got. By law, you're required to send a notification to every one of the people that is affected by this.
Okay, we can confirm that with staff, but
And
thank you.
we have not been notified.
Right.
And I believe that other people are in the same position as I am today. I only found out about this meeting tonight.
Great. I do have a question from council.
That's
If
the
your-
only
is your-
question.
Is your submission, I just want to make sure your
I'm
submission's
asking that
completed.
council reconsider this public hearing and send out proper notices so people can research the ideas that are behind what are being proposed so that we can turn around and say, yeah, we can be with the committee as individuals if council wants to choose people and make proposals and changes. This is not going to be like Brookswood, I hope.
All right, I have a question from council. Councilor Richter?
Thank you, Mr. Trukowski. How long have you lived in the Salmon River Uplands?
I have lived there 26 years.
26 years,
And
okay.
previous to that, I lived in Murrayville area, in a
Okay.
different area.
And so you never received any
notice
notification
at all.
about 700 new potential
No.
lots or these being on private wells?
No,
No? Okay,
so
thank you.
that's all I've got to say.
Okay, I have another question from council. Councilor Ferguson?
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a staff a quick question?
Oh, we can leave that for now. We have to collect the submissions.
All I wanted to, can I ask you a question? Is there a mail up still?
We can, we can complete the public hearing, go through the submission process, and maybe we can deviate a bit. Okay, so thank you very much for your submission. Next speaker, Yuvresh Mehta. Please come forward.
Good evening, council members, as well as good evening, Mayor. And just want to first of all thank to all of you. I'm working with the
You don't need to hold the mic. You can just
Sure,
you can just
thank
speak
you.
normally.
yeah.
Go
I'm
ahead.
just working with the Honorable MLA Megan Diamond's office with the Agriculture
You also
Committee.
don't need to lean into it. You can just
Sure.
stand normally.
Sure, absolutely.
Good.
I think my point of view over here is that it seems that no one really wants to look at the long-term vision for what Salmon River Upland is about. There are a lot of people still unaware about that. What Salmon River Upland is, a fairly large area which has been designated as a rural area by the Metro Vancouver. Secondly, it is important that some of the half and 1 acre area of single family housing lot, which has been assigned around the 24057 52nd Avenue, it is important that those rural character are still required to be maintained. Now, what important question comes to the council is that how you're going to maintain the rural character of the suburban area that you are trying to develop around the community. We all know that the city of Langley Township is pretty much predeterminedly going on housing law and development of the entire city. But what becomes important is that how the agricultural reserve land will be preserved, the rural character still continue to be maintained, and how this entire community development will be aware about the new development phase that council is going to be developing. What my point of view is that if we can refer that to the Agricultural Land Commission, they would be able to advise, and as well as council may make a good decision about that, how the community and as well as the agricultural land can be benefited for the farmers' operations, rather than just solely for the housing community.
Okay.
I'm ready to take any questions you
I
have, sir.
I have a question from council. Councilor Richter.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sementish. You mentioned an address,
24057 52nd Avenue.
24057
52nd Avenue. Yes.
And is that where your current residence is, or in that area?
Yeah, I'm working with the MLA Megan Dykeman's office on agricultural farmland operations, and the Salmon River Upland is one of the more competence and development community area that has come up, which is under the subdivision, and council has to evaluate that whether it's to be how it is to be developed. Still, a lot of people around the community in the Salmon River Upland area are not aware about that. How the Macmillan Island and the Fraser River Island and around the community farming operation works. I think it's important that they be made aware that how the agricultural reserve lands are to be utilized.
Okay, so do you live in the township right now? Or?
Yes, ma'am. I do live in a township. I live on 82nd Avenue, 207, 86th Avenue, Yorkson apartment, and I'm working with the Megan Dykeman's office on agricultural committee's agenda.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Next speaker, Gloria Stelting.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In my opinion, the document lacks substance for the planners to adequately negotiate with developers. The document misses its mark in what is valued by Salmon River Uplands owners. I would define the uplands as a collection of small-scale rural properties without much in the way of township services or infrastructure. What comes up in conversation among neighbors is that peacefulness is a unifying feature that we value for rural character. This equates to quietness combined with serenity from sights and sounds of nature around us, including the awesomeness of wildlife. City dwellers escape on weekends out of town to be able to have similar experiences. Also, we lack the greater light pollution in other areas, and this provides for us more restful nights with the dark skies. Salmon River rural character also provides us with a lifestyle that has been commented on as being way of lifers. It relates to our hobbies that are seen throughout our neighborhoods: RVs, collector cars, gardens, dogs, farm animals, including chickens, horses, cattle, and goats. These interests require space and give us quality of life instead of just surviving our life. The space between houses keeps our air fresh from others' marijuana, cigarette, campfires, and dryer sheet smells that cause conflicts in other communities. The Light breeze from the riparian area moderates the heat at my house in the summer, and the gravel roads and the trees lining it, I do believe contribute to heat reducing factors as well. To hold on to our rural lifestyle, the neighbors that have been there in a while realize the need to conserve our water. We reject the local area service for water, not just because of expense, but because we realize that having the convenience of township water will also result in potential rezoning to higher densities. That is shown by the Newfield development approval recently and the BC's multi-unit housing strategies. The observation well by D.W. Poppy has still continued to not come up to the level that it was at last year. This causes us great concern about the ongoing sustainability of our well waters, and that is why I so strongly support the measures within this document relating to water recharge with pervious surfaces. And I would like to see the pervious surface targets of the 2021 document put back into this document now. The water servicing section seems to be sharing factors for protection and conservation. I would think that servicing section might be good where it would state that compliance is needed with the subdivision and developing servicing bylaw, where there is a special section for the Salmon River uplands designated as suburban level 3, which requires municipal water and private septic as a minimum for the Salmon River uplands area. The 723 potential new homes are scattered throughout the uplands, and therefore I believe that the proposed trail network should actually be designed to cover off more of the lower section as well in the south. There had been a feasible crossing at 52nd when the East Langley water supply line went through, but unfortunately the land had been sold to a neighbor in 207. So all that we see now is a tall fence blocking off the area. I am concerned that the uplands area is going to be looking like Willoughby on steroids with large expensive houses, because with the 33% lot coverage in our zoning bylaw, that provides a lot of house, and in Hyde Canyon, where it is a clustered strata development, that seems to remind me of a Willoughby appearance. And I do not agree with the clustering of houses within the rural characteristics section. Okay. So I would like to refer you back to your 2022 Community Forest Management document. It has 3 very interesting maps that cover off tree canopy, impervious surfaces, and wildlife corridor connectivity, which apply to this document and show the justification for these factors within this current framework. My ask is that the strength of the 2021 document use of development instead of consider would be a good way to go again with this document, and to also to include in the ecological section, point number 5, pervious targets, and to include point number 4, tree canopy, and to change the trail network to be for the entire area, and to have light pollution trespass reduction be actually more like a bylaw instead of where it is currently as council policy only. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question from council. Council Richter.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Stelton. Can you tell us how long you've lived in the area?
Oh, I am very fortunate to have lived there for a long time. It will be 39 years come this July.
Okay. And as I recall, you have livestock, don't you? Horses?
Yes, I do. I have had continuous string of horses throughout the year. I started off with a pony that I grew up with, as well as a full-size horse, and I used to go riding around on 248th and Robertson Crescent and do a loop every night and stop in at the gas station and get a fudgicle with my friend. Really enjoyed the area.
Okay. And in the time that you've been there, have there been issues with your livestock because of increasing density? And I'm thinking things
Yes,
like...
there has been.
Yeah.
I've had a complaint that caused me a lot of problems, and if I wasn't educated in the township bylaws from all my engagement, I would have had problems because the bylaw officer came out and immediately wanted to be fining me right on that day for having tall grass and for not having mowed and taken the weeds out of the very, very deep ditch that is only there because of a township drainage system that's called a weir. And I am allowed, because of agriculture, to have tall grass. It's my pasture. My horse eats the grass. And so I had to go to Mark Backen and Bill Story to get that dealt with.
Okay. And what about things like fireworks? Ever an issue?
Oh,
with
that is a
fireworks?
huge problem for myself and all the other people that own dogs and horses, and I own dogs too.
I'm trying to provide some leeway here, but your submission did not include commentary regarding fireworks. Questions are supposed to be clarifications around the submission, Councilor Ricker.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much,
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor. You mentioned water issues.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about the water issues and maybe for the benefit of the councilors here who may not be aware what the difference is between surface wells and deep wells?
Okay, yes, a large area in the north other side of the Salmon River uplands are dependent on shallow wells, and these can be in the range of about 12 feet, maybe down to 25. And so these ones are much more dependent on what rain we've had through the winter season. And also, negativity about them is that when we have heavy rains, then the aquifer fills up and then flooding occurs. So it's very difficult for the township to separate the issues with having adequate drainage so certain houses don't flood, and to, at the same time, recharge the aquifer. The areas over on the Poppy side have deeper drilled wells overall. There are a few drilled wells on the North Otter area, but not as many as there are of the shallow wells.
Okay. And you mentioned clustering. What would the effect on wells, particularly shallow wells, be if clustering occurs?
Well, then your area that you would be, your well would be capturing from would be overlapping with neighbors.
So wells are likely to go...
So then, yes, it would reduce, because it's a shared resource and I can't save and expect the water to stay there. And that's the problem with neighbors that have had their wells go dry. They have tried to bring in water deliveries from a truck and just put it into the well. And the next day it's gone because it just spreads all out everywhere instead of staying in your well, unless you put in some sort of liner or fit your property with containers that are connected up by plumbing to your house.
Okay. And you mentioned you wanted to keep the homes in this area on septic systems. Is that correct?
I don't have any real preference in that regard. Septic would be preferable because that way we are like recycling our water instead of sending our aquifer water off to the rivers or off like via treatment plants. And that way every year we would have to be filling up the aquifer totally. Instead of this way, it just recycles.
Okay. And you mentioned tree canopy targets. What
Yes.
kind of tree canopy targets are you thinking of?
30%.
30%? Okay, is that what's there now, or is there more than 30%?
That is what the documents in the township's 2022 document states in their maps that currently is in the Salmon River uplands area. And the map shows darker green for the undeveloped tall timbers area and paler green in the areas beside Poppy and North Otter.
Okay. My last question, you mentioned trail issues. So where do you think these trails should go?
Well, the best route would have been the 52nd alignment because it was short and it would have allowed students to get between the two sides, people in evenings to walk both sides, but that's been taken away now. And then the other possibility would be up 54th by where there's a former poultry farm. That is one of the properties that is non-ALR, so it could be subdividing if they brought in water to the property. And then the other one is the 48th alignment, but that is a really long route. That one is in various township documents dedicated for future pathway through there. But that would be interacting a lot with the wildlife in there. And given that there, a couple of years ago, was a cougar in my yard, and I'm really close to that area, I don't know that that would be the best approach, and there's bears as well around.
Yeah, I've heard about the bears. You mentioned 723 new non-ALR lots.
Yes,
Where are those? Are they mainly
They are
south of 56th, or
No, they're all over.
they're all over?
Yes, that map is with the October 2021 document.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Rampopto?
Yeah, I just have one quick question.
Sure.
Thank you for being here, and I've read your submission that we got this evening.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify, because I'm just a little bit confused about what your position is on water. You're talking about aquifer levels, and it's something that's on all of our minds. But it also sounds like you're not in favor of bringing in municipal water. So
Oh, no, I am for all the new housing. I have been very supportive of the policy that's been in place for a long time in the subdivision and development servicing bylaw 2019 and prior ones before that, that all new developments must be serviced by municipal water.
okay,
The line that runs through our area, the 52nd, that's the trunk line that all the water servicing in our area is coming off of. The one that was built to take Metro Water out to Aldergrove and to Gloucester so that they could expand.
okay, sorry, yeah, because I was just reading that you were concerned about bringing in higher density if we bring in water, but
No, if
Okay.
I said that, it was an error. in
okay,
there.
okay. No, I just wanted to clarify. That's all
I'm
good.
just very concerned that new developments do not block with their roofs and everything the ability of the ground to absorb water so that the aquifer underneath it can fill. Because there's certain areas within the Salmon River uplands and the adjacent areas which use the same aquifer, the Hoppington, that do not recharge as well because they are confined on the top with a clay barrier. Where I live, it's open, and that's why we have that about 25 feet before you get to a clay barrier. And so that's where our aquifer is. They're just dug wells, they're not drilled.
Okay, thank you.
They're very old fashioned.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. I had one question as well.
Sure.
You could, maybe I just wasn't following. The 723
Yes,
lots, can you remind me or go over it again how you calculate this?
I didn't calculate it. Township staff calculated it on council direction in developing the initial framework. And it is on page, I think it's on 363
Okay.
of that document. If you look at it, it's just before it gives the preliminary draft of the framework.
Okay.
A couple pages before that, it's
I'll
bright
look for that.
orangey yellow color, and then there's a table before that that explains, and that's based on the zoning that was current at that time. So it won't include like the additional housing that you approved in November for the rezoning at Newfield or any rezoning that increases the potential housing in the whole area.
Okay, well, great. I'll look for that again.
Yes, perfect.
and,
If you don't, I can email it to
Great.
you.
I'm sure I'll find it now that you've
Okay.
referenced which page to find it on.
Yes, I
so
have it on my
must-
computer. I can just send it over to you when I
Must have
get
missed
home.
that. Okay, so I appreciate that. I see no other questions from council. Thank you for your submission.
Thank you for hearing me today. Bye.
Are there any other members of the public who wish to make a submission on item B1? Please come forward. You could just let us know your name and general area for the record, please.
Jerry Lamb, 30-year resident of Tall Timber Estates. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but then I thought, okay, I'll come up. About a year ago, I was walking around Tall Timbers with one of the current councilors, looking at maps of development proposals and saying, here's the map and here's the reality, this is what'll happen. And it was interesting. Then this councilor asked me a question. And the question was, what do you see in the future of Salmon River? And I thought, I've never really thought about it. So I did think about it. And I look at Tall Timbers, and I think, why can't we have things like Tall Timber Estates scattered in different areas that are sustainable within the Salmon River uplands? So I look at the document now that's up for debate, I guess it's with council, and I go, in theory, it's good. In theory. Because it finally puts down on paper an updated version of development in the tall timber, or in the uplands, and potentially throughout the rest of rural Langley. It covers all of the key points. My favorite thing, the 3 T's: trees, traffic, and trails. It covers the salmon, the endangered salmon streams, the 2 of them. It covers the endangered aquifer, and on and on and on. All of the stuff is finally there, rather than in suggestions that go back into the 1990s. We finally updated it and said, here's the roadmap. But it's a theory. Is it as real as that new traffic light up at 56th and 240th that some people view as a suggestion? Or is it something that we will then take forward? We're still looking, I guess, at 2 development proposals near Tall Timbers. I personally still think one of them is potential. The other one, not so much. But put the roadmap down, and then we can deal with these things. Because yes, it does cover so much that we've been arguing for, saying it's not covered, or it was partially covered before and then ignored. So the 3 T's. And that's it. Any questions?
Councilor Richter?
Are you satisfied that this plan that's in front of us right now addresses those 3 T's?
In theory. And that's always the bugbear, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You know, you can come up with a roadmap, and then suddenly you find exceptions. And every exception appears to be bona fide until you've got 100 exceptions, 200 exceptions. So will council going forward, this council and future councils, then refer back to this report to say, okay, does this proposal, whether it's 5 acres, 20 acres, 100 acres, does this meet those guidelines that were laid down in 2024?
So if there's anything that you would add to this, what would it be to make sure it is strong?
Stop using that word conceptual when it comes to trails. That drives me nuts. We've listened to that for 30 years. Nothing happens. Nothing ever has happened. I thought one of the proposals 2 or 3 years ago was actually looking pretty good, till I read it and it said conceptual. Conceptual is strictly theoretical to me. It means it's not going to happen. So yeah, let's deal in cold, hard facts in the future and move this forward. Anything else?
Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, Mr. Lamb, thank you for coming. Jerry, I appreciate your time. I know you spent an awful lot of time in the area. You actually live right in Tall Timbers area, and you kind of watch the trees every once in a while when there's a big storm. And I think your
Yes.
neighbors appreciate that. I did want to ask you, you commented with Councillor Richter as to, what you see and what you feel moving forward. If you don't like the comments regarding trees, have you got something you want us to take with us, a public hearing in a concrete matter regarding trees? And regarding trees and trails?
I don't quite understand the trees question.
I guess the trees is more, we have a bylaw we're working towards, so I mostly focus that on trails.
Yeah, our just problem with the trees was who owns the trees, and when they come down and cause damage, who do we talk to? Fortunately, the developer ponied up and said, yes, I own the property, and eventually everything was taken care of, and they helped with a couple of other neighbors as well. Yeah. One of the key problems in our area is we've got these hemlock trees that are dying, and they're expensive to take down. So the trail question?
Yes.
What was that?
Okay, you don't like the word preliminary, so have you got something more concrete that we as a council can take with us?
Well, I've spoken with some of you privately over the years that I don't see why we can't have something going north-south, all the way potentially from 56th Avenue, Kelly Lake Park, all the way north to Williams Lake, or to Williams Park, and potentially even farther north. It's just a matter of, over time, either you acquire the property to make it happen, or you insist that developers make it happen. So you can see the linkages. So one developer puts in a proposal for a parcel, where's the outlet to the north or the east or the west if there's a trail plan coming through? And how long did it take to develop the trail out of Campbell Valley towards Aldergrove? Is that actually happening now? I don't know. It was meant to be a combined walking horse trail. Took a long, long time and a lot of argument. It makes sense to do that kind of thing. But as the property gets developed, pretty soon you can't do it. You just don't have it anymore. So conceptual, yeah, I hate that word. Does that answer your question?
Okay, anyway, thank you, Mr. Lamb, for coming, Jerry. We appreciate that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, thank you for your submission.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to make a submission on item B1? For a second time, are there any other submissions from the public on item B1? And then for a third and final time, are there any other submissions from the public on item B1? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on B1 so we can address Councillor Ferguson's question. I'll move third and final reading consideration. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rint. Call the question on considering third and final. That carries. Councillor Richter opposed. I'll move it. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rint. And Councillor Ferguson, you had a question?
Yeah, my question was, if I may, through the chair to staff, in the past, we have had mail-outs to individual residents in the area. Does that still occur in our policy, if I may?
Your worship, through you to Councillor Ferguson, the requirements of the Local Government Act are satisfied. Certain neighborhood plans may have mail-out, certain neighborhood plans do not, just depending on the direction, but the Local Government Acts were satisfied, the requirements under the Local Government Act were satisfied for this application, or this amendment.
Thank you.
Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, so I'm, hearing Mr. Lamb, the word conceptual. Is there another way or word that we can use that we know then that's not conceptual through, so that, these things actually happen?
Mr. Cooner?
Through your worship to Councillor Kuntz, the proponents do bring conceptual layouts for trail connectivity. I don't believe the exact word conceptual is referred to in the planning policy framework. It's consider a cohesive and interconnected trail network plan to provide for enhanced recreational and alternative multi-modal transportation opportunities in local context. The proponents do provide conceptual layouts, but that can be considered, that word can be changed at a development service level, but the actual word is not in the policy framework.
Okay, I'm not sure how much we're allowed to talk about.
Yeah, so what I wanted to do is give everybody a chance to answer questions, because Councillor Ferguson had a question. I'm going to move deferral here in a moment
Okay.
to the next meeting. I don't anticipate trying to make a decision here tonight. I'd like to take some time with the submissions and review the documentation. So the only way to get Councillor Ferguson's question to staff was to close the public hearing and get the motion on the floor. So I'll move deferral here in a moment. Councillor Richter, go ahead.
Yeah, I recall discussions about the trail plan, that the big issue was in some of the applications that had come forward or were being proposed, is that trails along the river were not available and should be available. So I will support a deferral because I'd like to talk to staff more about this. I think that this whole area needs to be preserved for future generations, and I certainly agree with Mr. Lamb that we need to talk specifics, not generalities, in order to ensure that this happens.
Great, so I'll move deferral. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Is there any discussion on deferral? Seeing none, I'll call the question on deferral of B1 to March 11th. That carries unanimously. Get a motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Rent, seconded by somebody. Councillor Bailey, all those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you.